Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cybersecurity Recruiter Podcast. Today, I'm joined by my good friend Mike. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Good. Listen, I had to hit record there, mate, because I thought at one point me and you were just probably just going to chat for an hour and forget to record. But at least we've done it.
Great. We've finally got here. I mean, we love the gab, so.
We do, yeah. We were chatting a while ago about doing this, and I've seen you a lot on LinkedIn, mate. I know you're pretty active in the community, which is cool. Maybe we can talk about that later, and the benefits to other people and the benefits to business and career progression.
Yeah, if you can get into the algorithm, right? If you can be the LinkedIn person that LinkedIn thinks is important, then wow, you're at the top of everybody's queue.
Yeah, cool. But what I'll do, Mike, for the listeners that haven't met you before, I'll just do you a bit of an intro. So Mike Crandall started off back in the day in the US Air Force in around the mid-90s. You were there for around 6 years. You were a senior network manager. You were then in the NATO Lead International Security Assistance Force. You was a chief there. And then you were an enterprise network security manager again for the US Air Force, almost for 10 years, for about 8.5 years. You were also involved, you was a business owner back in the early 2000s, which you did that for over 7 years. You were then the director of operations for DRGT Inc., and you were then a senior cybersecurity consultant for Solitaric Group. You are currently an executive consultant for the Groover Group. You were also a VCISO for Computer Solutions Inc. You were also a lead adjunct instructor cybersecurity for Thrive DX, and you are currently the CE and have been for almost a decade of Digital Beachhead. You sound like a busy man. Welcome to the show.
I was going to say, you make it sound like I don't have time for my family or my wife. So
listen, Mike, thanks for making the time today. Sis, I know you are genuinely a busy chap. I know we were talking about on air about how intense things have been lately, which is how it is when you're an entrepreneur. But I've done you a bit of an intro, mate, but I never think I can do it as well as you. So it'd be nice to know who you are, what you get up to, what's a day in the life of Mike like right now.
Oh, yeah. Starts with a cup of coffee every day. That's the most important thing. I got to get my go-go juice. But yeah, I retired military. I was fortunate enough to be starting networking before they were a thing. So I got to play around before people complained their email was down. So I got to learn a lot along the way. When I retired, that's when I worked for CRGT. I was trying to think, what do I do when I grow up? Because now I'm out of the military, worked for them for 5 years, and I found they were purchased twice during that period of time. The third one I didn't make. And I'm like, I don't want to live this life anymore, working for other people. So I started Digital Beachhead, and away we go, providing our VCISO services and endpoint services for small businesses, just trying to bring the gospel of cyber to the world, if we will.
Yeah, cool, Mike. Do you know what it is, Mike? You brush over it then, but it's a big jump, like, especially, I mean, going from the forces to like the commercial world, that's a big jump. But you've gone forces, cybersecurity consultant, commercial world, business owner. So you've gone like, boom, like 3 massive jumps there. And I think especially since remote working, there will be a lot of people out there that want to, but they perhaps don't know how to, or they are trying to weigh up the kind of risk reward. Like, how, mate? Like, how do you go from where you were to where you are now? Like, how does it go down, and what's the mindset required? And yeah, what do you do? Talk us through it.
Well, part of my service was there in the UK, and I trained with some folks whose motto is "Who dares wins." So if you know the SAS, that's their motto. And I kind of just did that. It was, you have to do it, right? You can hem, you can haw, you can sit on the fence, but I would say, make sure you have enough money for 6 months to live, because we always hope, hey, I started a business. I hung my shingle on my roof. I'm ready to go. Company X has begun. Clients don't just come swinging into your, hey, we're here. Thanks. We heard you opened the company. You have to go out and hunt for it. And I would recommend to people, if they can do both, start your company, slowly start to build that clientele where you work in your day job. And then you're going to hit a point, though. I call it the crap or get off the pot
Mm.
point where
Yeah.
you can't do both, but you're not making enough at the new job to cover what you're making at the old job. But I told my wife, we have our mortgage and ramen covered, and I'll grow the company so that I can buy you a steak again one day. And that's what
Okay.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's nice, mate. Yeah. Do you know what it is? I think that bit about talking to your wife or your husband, I think that's key because I think her knowing what's going on and what's what. If you're accustomed to working in cybersecurity, pretty senior, you're obviously accustomed to a certain lifestyle, a certain amount of money coming in every month. So I'm imagining her knowing what's going on. I'm imagining that's massively helpful in the early days.
oh yeah. I mean, you got to be honest, not just with your spouse or significant other, but yourself.
Mm.
That, like I say, when I was working for the large company and I got out, everyone was telling me, oh, you're a veteran. So if you can get a company and become a service disabled veteran, own company, we have all this work we need to send your way. And so you do it. And then you go back to those companies and say, I did it. I'm a service disabled company. And they're like, cool. Well, if you go to our portal and get logged into our system, and I'm like, that's a lot of work now. I don't want to be
Yeah.
in the queue with everyone else. So
Mm.
really it's rolling up your sleeves and getting out there. And
Yeah.
I would say the first client's the hardest, right? Once you get one, then you can get another one, and you get another one. And then you have past performance and history and references, and it goes easier.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does, mate. Having references and case studies, I've found myself, it's like you can get to the stage where if you've got a load of good case studies, I don't know about you, Mike, I almost do it now where I'm like, look, I'm not even going to sell myself. There's my case studies. There's the points of contact. There's their email, but they can sell for me because I actually think it's more effective and it's more authentic and stuff like that. But yeah, the first one, obviously, you haven't got any of that unless you can pull stuff from your previous employer where you've performed and stuff like that. But yeah, generally speaking, I think the longer you do it, the easier it gets. But yeah, it sounds like it's been a bit of a journey, mate. But I'm imagining 8, 9, 10 years in, it's starting to get a bit easier, maybe getting to grips with it.
Touch wood, yes, we're starting to find ourselves in a nice growth pattern. And as long as you're constantly growing, dying on the vine, right?
Mm.
And I think that's one thing is I learned early on, don't get comfortable. You got some clients, you're making a decent living, whew, but clients come and go. And you have to always be looking for the next one, because if you're not growing, you're stagnant at
Yeah,
best.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're so right, mate, as well. Because you know what I find as well is I've done that before where we've got really busy and I've eased off a bit. And then maybe a client does something that upsets you a little bit and you just go, oh, yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And they just ask you to move the goalposts a bit. And because you've not really pushed on the client side, you're like, oh, yeah, okay. Before you know it, you're just running around, moving things left and center, and you've moved completely away from what your kind of core mission was and value. It's like, oh, God. And I think it's so easy to fall off that wagon. I did it again recently where we got super busy about 2 or 3 months ago. And I literally pulled it back in and I've just to check myself again, and I got really mad with myself. But I think it's okay to. I think we all fall off, mate. As long as we recognise it and we get back on, I think it is just a natural human thing, isn't it? Where you just have to keep checking yourself.
it's a journey,
Yeah,
right? The only destination I have is when I'm ready to retire.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Until then, it's a journey. And, also if you can try to enjoy it,
yeah,
the one thing I learned in the military is life is short. So hopefully you enjoy what you do if you're an entrepreneur, right? You
yeah, yeah.
pick the career you like to do versus, oh my God, I have to do this every day. It kind of makes it easier.
It does. It does. Yeah, and definitely enjoy. You've only got to look at people that sell a business. The amount of, I'll talk about recruitment, the amount of people I know that have sold recruitment agencies and literally, Mike, within months, they're setting up another one because they're bored or they were adamant they were going to take so many years out and they just don't. They're just back at it because they just don't know what to do with themselves. And yeah, I think it's enjoy the journey because it is good fun building something. It gets you going, mate, doesn't it?
And you have that fire. I like to joke that my boss is a real jerk. Doesn't give me time off, really hard on me. But, it is you. When I was working for that large company, I came out of the military where like my work ethics were, grind, 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 give them 12 hours a day. And they didn't care. You know what I mean? It's the bottom line, which is fair, right? As a business owner, I get that. But I was like, why am I doing all of this, making them this profit? I could do that. So the one thing I did do was I learned all of the positions within the company, not just what I was doing. I was going to the finance team. How are you bidding the numbers and, the
Okay.
proposal team, how you're writing the proposals. And
Yeah.
so, and they thought I was foolish. They're like, oh, he wants to do my job. And I'm like, I'll help you. I just want to give you a leg up when I'm giving you the material.
Yeah.
But it helped me when I started my own. Now I'm like, oh, I know this stuff.
Yeah. That's massive because some people would look at that and go, oh, I'm working for free. Other people would look at that and go, I'm learning for free. I'm getting something from this for free. And I think that's a really good, that second one's a really good mindset
Right?
to adopt. Yeah, it's good, mate.
It's keeping you alert and, you never know what's going to happen in the future. So be prepared.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. Mike, on the community stuff, and I know we were talking about the kind of RSPCA stuff before we came on and thing. It'd be nice for you to tell the listeners more about that. What I'm always saying to like candidates is make your resume 3D. And that means get active in the community, have a YouTube channel, post on LinkedIn, whatever it might be. If you can do some podcasts and stuff like that, it makes such a difference to your career growth and a career progression. And this is relevant whether you're a business owner, whether you're a candidate trying to get off the jobs market. It can relate to everyone. But can you tell me and the listeners more about the kind of community-led activity you do and the extracurricular stuff that you do, mate? Because it's quite unorthodox and interesting, and it'll be nice to hear about it.
Yeah. So with the RSPCA, we have a YouTube channel and we created a funny marketing video that instead of the sad puppies, with the sad music, so much a day you can save these puppies. We did it with users who are ransomware. And it was like for $1 a day, you can, save these poor users. Right. And it's humorous, but hopefully it's memorable. Right. And I also do like podcasts like this. I appear in articles any chance I get to, be interviewed for a magazine or an online resource because it's building my then authority compared to my competitors. If it's Mike and Thomas and Mike is on 4 covers of this and was art, printed over here and Thomas is really smart. They tend to go with the person they think has more authority because other people listen to me.
Yeah.
I'm no smarter than anyone else. I'm just getting my name out there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really good. And I think I'm sure you know what it's like, Mike, when a customer comes to you, or if you're searching for a job and the employer comes to you as opposed to you going to them, it's always different. If I talk about in business, you can to a certain extent dictate fee structure and the margins if they've come to you. Whereas when you're going to people, it still works, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same, is it?
Right. If they think your knowledge is 2 leagues above all the competitors, whether it's legit or, in this world of, well, I see him everywhere, he has to be important. That's why lawyers put their faces on buses,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
you see it, you know them.
Yeah, I think even just the fact I have a saying here, look, providing we're doing a good job, I always say to the guys, if we're doing a good job, if people know us and they like us and they trust us, like we're sorted. We know we can recruit. We know we can find the people. Let's just get ourselves out there more and more. But it is a long game and it does take a bit of time and it takes a lot of consistency. And I don't know about you, Mike, but like some months I'm like, God, it's really worth it. And we get results of it. Then sometimes I go months and I'm like, is it even, it's good fun. Don't get me wrong. And it helps other people, but is there anything coming back off this? But it does, but it's that long. It's like you said, it's that journey and try and enjoy it and don't think about the instant results, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. And we go to conferences and I try to speak at conferences, another way to be the authority. I'm not just here with a booth. I'm one of the keynotes or a panelist. And when we do that, we've noticed it's a power of 3. The first year, they're like, okay, this person's trying to be in our community, whatever the conference is about. The second year, they're like, oh, okay. They weren't a fly by night, here. And we start getting more information, more leads. By year 3, they're like, hey, we saw you the previous 2 years. And they really take you seriously. So it does take some time because if you just show up at a conference and go, I spoke, please come to me, I'm the expert. They're like, well, we get lots of people that come to these conferences to sell to us and they leave. Or 3, they're like, oh, this person's interested in our, whatever the conference community is.
That's really, and what's that called? Power of 3, did you say?
I said, I call it the power of three,
Okay,
the
okay.
free conference get, you gotta,
Yeah.
and we did that. We opened a subsidiary. One of our growth areas was in Canada. So we opened a Canadian subsidiary and we're doing life sciences up there, just hitting the life science community. First year, they were like, great, cybersecurity. Year two, they're like, hey, we remember you from last year. Year three, they were like, hey, we have all your swag. We're still using it. You know what I mean? Like they were friendly. They came to us like, oh, cybersecurity. We remember getting business.
Yeah, it takes time. And rightly, if it was a case of just rocking up to a conference, speaking for half an hour, and the floodgates open, as the old saying goes, everyone would be doing it. It's nice to hear that because actually having a bit of a framework. I like the fact you've produced like a saying and a framework, power of three, because I bet that I can imagine like just you saying that to me is actually helpful for me. So I can imagine that being helpful to you and your team and the people that have got targets around you and stuff like that. So I really like that. And do you know what? I wonder how many people stop after year one or halfway through year two or something like that. I bet loads.
Many, because it's expensive to do these sometimes. And you get there and after year one, you're like, I had tons of people talk to me, but no one followed up, right? I had no leads. If you try it the second year and maybe you get one, you're like, I'm spending all this money and I'm not getting anywhere. And that's why I say the power of three. I found if I don't get anything by year three, maybe they're not interested.
Yeah.
This is not the right community, but I've given them a chance to know me and me to know them. And if we click, then you'll get business. If not,
Yeah.
hey, that's business as well, right? You got to sometimes adjust fire and try in other communities.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And do you know what? One of my friend's dads, who was ultra successful, and he used to say it's a test. Like when I used to go around the house, and there was always something going on with his business. He was either doing this, like 1 minute he was flying, next minute he was struggling. If he was ever struggling, he was like, "It's just a test. It's just a test to see how bad I want it." And I think it's the same when you're reaching out. It's the same when you go to a conference. It's the same when you go through tough times at work. It is literally a test to see how badly do you want this entrepreneur thing? How badly do you want this new cybersecurity job? How badly do you really want to get off the jobs market? Do you really need to get off it? Or
Yep.
are you just saying it's just a test, isn't it?
Yeah. And you have to want it. Don't become an entrepreneur if you're afraid of work. You're afraid of failure. I always say failure is a stepping stone to success because you fail a few times. As long as you learn from it, you're getting somewhere,
Yeah.
and I failed plenty, in life and work and everything. And you just have to be able to say, hey, did I get something from that?
Yeah, definitely. I really like what you do. I like the way that everything you're saying can be related for people listening. It can be if they're leading a team, if they're trying to get a job, if they're starting a business, if they're running a business. Speaking at conferences isn't just for an entrepreneur. If you speak at conferences as a cybersecurity analyst, that's going to work wonders for your personal brand and it's going to elevate your career progression over time. So all this stuff that we're talking about, whether it's the YouTube channel you've got or the podcast you're doing or the conferences you're going to, applicable to anyone. Is there that's loads, by the way, but is there anything else that you're doing to help others whilst helping yourself?
We, of course, are active in the local community, even though we'll take clients from anywhere in the world. I am where I am. And so I joined the local chamber. I've, go to the local events. I've joined, in my case, cybersecurity community locally, those kind of things. And then secondarily, as a military veteran, I've got Afghan Promise, which is my nonprofit charity that I'm trying to get those Afghans that serve beside us, the U.S. and NATO forces in Afghanistan that were promised visas to get out.
Okay.
We're still working them like an underground railroad to get them out of Afghanistan. And so it just shows that we're not just, I'm here just to beat you up. We're humans and we have human needs and fears and cares. So be that,
cool.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, no, that sounds good, mate. Go into the life sciences and stuff like that. I think sometimes we forget how interesting cybersecurity is to people that aren't in the security space. The reason this is coming to my mind is because I've got a really long-standing client and I know the founder really well. And he said, Tom, he needed like a finance manager. He goes, have you ever recruited one before? I said, I haven't, but I said, I'm sure I can. And they're a security company. I built the whole team. I've known them for years. And so I'm talking to these finance people this week. Hey, Mike, they are like in awe. They're like, "Oh my
Oh my
God, this
God,
is so
he's showing.
intriguing." Like the response rate
Yeah.
my resource team have got when they've done the outreach to set up the calls for me has been like better than what we get when we hit up cybersecurity people that I know. Like people are fascinated, mate, aren't they?
Yeah. And that hits on when I speak of conferences, we stopped going to cybersecurity conferences because it's people talking to themselves about how cool we are compared to the other cyber people that were there with us, right? And it's like, my tool's better than your tool, or I'm smarter than you are. And why do that when I can go to a life sciences or a small business conference or, lawyers, dentists, you name the kind of conference, you show up and you're the cybersecurity company in the room. You're standing out. And again, power of three, first year, they're like, yeah, thanks. But if you keep showing up, they're like, wow, because everyone needs cyber. Everyone knows about cyber. We hear about the hacks, but it's being that person that can get there. And why compete? Why go to where everyone
Yeah.
is and expect the people walking around to pick you out of everyone when I can go to them and be like, hi, all client possibilities. I'm here.
Yeah, that's really cool. You've actually got me thinking about. We could probably do the same as an agency. If we go to, I've not actually ever been to Black Hat, but if I go to Black Hat, I know there's a million other recruiters there trying to do the same thing. So yeah, you could probably do the same, similar sort of approach for what we do. But yeah, but it's good with the life sciences guys and girls. Just like fascinated, where they just, I bet that I can imagine some of the questions.
Yeah. You give you our 3-year cycle. The first cycle was, yeah, cybersecurity. We think about that. Yeah, we know that's important. And year 2, they were like, oh, you're here. This is, interesting. We picked up a few clients. They were like, we need that. Year 3, they were, oh man, this other company got hacked. I'm so worried about my data. And they start like being a doctor, they're like, it hurts when I do this. They were sitting there trying to get all their problems solved with us, right there at the table. So you can see that progression, and yeah, it's an important issue and they all know it. It's trust.
Yeah,
And if you're just the first year there, they don't know you. They don't trust you.
no, no,
And it's
yeah. I
funny
think
just seeing you 3 times. They're like, oh, I know this guy.
it's true. I think it's the same. We signed up for that tool, Clay, that I was telling you about. I learned about that through this. We'd signed up for this recruitment course, and I'd seen this guy on my LinkedIn feed. I reckon I'd seen him 15 or 20 times before I even thought about going for it. And then someone on the team mentioned that they'd seen it as well, which sparked a conversation, which ended up me paying for the course. But yeah, you have to, I think in today's world as well, like, probably trust is probably, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if this is true or not, but like probably an all-time low. Like we don't trust anything anymore, do we?
No. And because we all worked from home and survived this pandemic and, kind of sheltered in place, it's now harder to get back out and just say, no, I do this. And they're like, I don't
Yeah.
know you.
Yeah. Good. Good. All right, mate. I feel like you'd be really well qualified to answer this question because, like you say, you've come from the forces, you've gone into security, you've gone into the commercial world, then you've not only started your own business, it's been successful, it's been going for nearly 10 years, you've come up with some really sophisticated and somewhat different and unique business development strategies. So you're obviously pretty switched on, mate. So when it comes to the tough times and when things are going bad, have you got any like things that you do to keep yourself going or to exercise those resiliency muscles or anything at all any like coping mechanisms, if you like, for when your back's against the wall?
And that's having a good, you know, leaning on your partner, significant other. And it's also knowing that you can only move forward. So the greatest plans go to hell when first contact with the enemy, right? So you can have a plan all day, everything could be going well, but it's not always. It's going to go to crap at some point, right? It always does. So the idea there is to press forward. Don't retreat. You're not in a position of power. So you got to always move towards the enemy, right? So move towards what's next. And so that's kind of what I cling to is when things are down, it's like, they're not down. This is a lull. This is my plan has gone to hell. I need to adjust fire. What do I do differently? Don't do the same thing again and again if it's not working. So again, like the power of three, if I'm at the conference in third year, no one's biting. No one cares. I'm there as a cyber guy. Yeah. We spent money. Yeah. I could, dwell on this much gone and no return. Or I could go, great, next year, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to put it somewhere else and we'll be year one, So
Yeah.
it's that positive attitude and moving forward.
It is, yeah. And do you know what? When people get down about, there's a couple of things there, Mark, as well. It's nice that you've got a formula as well for knowing when to switch strategy. So that's good. The next thing as well is, yeah, when people go, if someone goes, oh, yeah, I spent that money there and nothing came back. If me and you knew which conferences to go to that would get us the return straight away, God, we could sell those tickets for, God, we'd be sorted.
Yeah. That would be your whole business model was, oh, what do you do? Great. Hit these 2 conferences. You're going to be good
Yeah.
for life.
Yeah. Just have a really well-trained team delivering on all the work and just go to a couple of conferences a year and just sit with just like I say, it just doesn't work like that. You have to get through the no's to get through the yeses. You have to go to the conference. It's like you say, just embrace the journey, enjoy it. You don't know where the wins are going to come from. But one thing you do know is if you stick to it, stick to your routine, stick to your formula and practice what you preach, that it's going to come good and come in at some point. But yeah, to think that you can just rock up and get it right every time, you'd have to be Jeff Bezos or someone like that, wouldn't you?
Like, I don't think he knew. He was selling books out of a garage, right? And, this is my dream. And now look, right? It took off. But, we all hope we all have that vision, but we don't know what's going to happen. No one knows the future. I used to tell my kids to, always look forward because if you're looking back, you're going to trip over your future.
Okay.
So
cool.
while it's good to look back briefly, learn from your mistakes, grow, you have to focus forward because if you're constantly looking backwards, you're going to trip up on your future.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. Mate, we talked about it a bit, the Air Force bit. Like there'll be people listening to this that are transitioning out of the Army or the Air Force. I know you said you got told there was loads of work and it was easy and it really wasn't. So you mentioned that, but that transition out, what do you know now that you wish you knew back then that could help people that are literally coming out? Because there's so many people coming out of the Army and the forces coming into the cyberspace, and they probably would like to hear from someone that's been there and done it. So any thoughts for the people listening that are in that bracket, mate?
Yeah, don't undersell yourself. I know when I came out, I'm like, oh, I only did this and I've never been a CEO and I've never, managed big projects. But then when I looked at my career, I'm like, oh no, I was a program manager. I didn't see it as such. I was just leading my little military team doing my duty, quote unquote, our job day to day. But if you really sit down and go, okay, let me think about what I've done and equate that to a civilian career field, even if you were just an NCO after 20 years or you're a young troop, you've probably done more in your 4 years, term than most civilians have done in their lifetime as far as experiences. So harness that and be able to, and there's organizations that help us. We have to ask for their help, when there's all kinds of transition organizations, but learn how to harness those words into civilian words,
Okay.
I was talking say I was a project manager of, blah, 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 with a budget of.
Would you say it's easy to build up the commercial world to be more than it is when you're coming out? You think that you're actually utilizing a lot of the skills anyway, and you build up the commercial stuff to be different, and it's probably not too dissimilar if you strip it back.
Yeah, and you're probably been working harder than most people do on their 9 to 5, as we were joking, right? Oh, that's not in my contract. I can't do that. You never thought that in the military. So that's the benefit is you're willing to hit the ground running. You're willing to learn, grow, adapt. And I think people who are hiring need to think of that too, is when you're getting someone from the military, while they may not have that quote unquote experience you're used to, take the experience they have and use it to your benefit.
Yeah. I think some people do, and not everyone does, Mike, but I think some people do. I know there's a particular client we've got on the CMMC stuff, and they've literally said to me on an email, like, we'd ideally like some with a military background, which is great. It's nice with that for all those reasons. Because, talk about having your resilience levels and your mindset tested and having to get over setbacks and deal with issues. I've never been in the forces myself, but I can imagine. Yeah, I'm imagining you coming out of there stronger than most.
I like to tell a lot of my clients when they're stressed, like, oh, cybersecurity, or we had this issue or this, event's going on. I'm like, take a breath. You're not being shot at. I used to have to do cyber under fire. So this is really a step removed from that. So it's all perspective, right? It's how you look at things. So
It is.
take a step back, realize, yeah, this is painful in the moment, but we got it.
Yeah.
Breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what? Everything's mindset
Yeah.
and perspective. I was getting stressed the other day, Mike, because we're building a team and we're remote. And as I know we were talking about before we went on air, we've got people all over the world and I'm getting stressed about it. And we're a tiny company, like real niche and all the rest of it, boutique. And I was talking to a guy the other day, he's got 450 people working remote. And I was like, God, what if something goes wrong? He went, goes wrong every day. Like we just find the solution, we find the problem. So I think again, mindset and stuff like that. It's just everything. I'm there stressing about taking on 2 or 3 more people. He's there getting 450 people working remotely. It made me feel really stupid.
Our pressures on us, right?
Yeah.
But if we can step back and say, yeah, I have a problem to deal with, but let me work the problem. Let me work the issue. And as long as you're working the issue, you're moving forward. Again, always move forward, never move backwards.
Yeah, cool. All right, Mike. So I know we've probably got about another maybe a bit less than 10 minutes. So I'll get stuck in as we come to the end here. So you've obviously built the business. You've had people coming in. What kind of characteristics and traits do you see in security professionals? What separates the ones that are just okay from the ones that are like top draw, exceptional, really going places? Do you see any kind of key traits that could help the listeners?
Yeah, I would say those people that kind of want to understand more than the tools. I'm a pen tester and they run the toolkits. Great. I'm glad you learned them. That's awesome. But do you know what they're doing? Do you understand what's going on behind the tool so that you can then tweak it, change it, adapt, overcome issues, right? To me, those are the ones that excel, the people that are more than just, I'm certified in this tool and I know how to run it really well. Awesome. I appreciate you. But I always ask, so what's that doing? What are you looking for there? What's the, protocols you're using in the background?
Yeah, no, definitely. I tell you what I found in a really hot market in 2021. And this isn't everyone. I know there's been some good people affected by the layoffs, but in 2021, like you'd speak to someone who was literally running a Nessus scan and they were getting paid 200K base, and you'd be like, how's that working? And they were literally like running scans. And I was thinking, this is crazy. And that was what it was like in that post-COVID hiring boom. It was that crazy. So I think as much as it's good for career progression to learn how to get behind the tools, write your own scripts, make it happen, learn about the inner workings, I think it protects you from a stability and a progression standpoint as well. Because if you are just sat behind the tools, as it were, it's not good for you. It's a dangerous place to sit, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. When Nessus becomes the old tool.
Exactly. When AI just does what Nessus does.
But if you understand how it's working and the protocols, and that's where I was fortunate because I came in early, with the military and got to play and learn how things worked. But I always tell my students when I'm teaching, learn basic networking. Even if you want to be a cyber person, learn how my computer talks to your computer. What does that mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. The fundamentals, you just can't. I think the same with any business is just learning the fundamentals, I think, is key. Mike, any book, I used to say books, but it can be books, podcasts, or online content. Anything you're consuming could be security related, could just be self-help, progression, business, or content you're consuming that's making you a better person that could make the listeners a better person, basically.
I've read a lot of former military people and their struggles, those kind of books. And then technically, I'm a big fan of the O'Reilly series. That's where I learned from in the early 90s before we had the Google. I used to joke, to my students, the Google machine, where you can type in an error message and it tells you exactly what's going on. I said, I used to have to read a whole dang book to, find that same problem because we couldn't just search for it. Search engines didn't exist. So I'm still a big fan of reading how things work.
Yeah. I think there's something about actually reading a book. I do it every day. Like I still write a list every day and I remove the information from here and put it on the page. And I've read about it. Like I've got quite an active mind, and it basically says that if you are like that, it just works wonders to actually put pen to paper. And I think it's the same when you're reading a book. There's just, maybe I'm showing my age a bit, mate, but there's just something about it.
No, I'm with you. And I say it's when we're doing troubleshooting, when we would read the books, for me, if you can't just Google the this is the problem and this is the answer. I had to look, and you think of the spectrum. I tried over here, I tried to the left, I tried to the right, and you narrow it down to the problem you solved. But I learned 10 things that that didn't solve the problem, but I learned them in trying to solve the problem. Where nowadays
Yeah.
people just type in, I got error code 12, and it's like, oh, click this and you're good. And you're like, great. I said, you didn't learn anything.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I can see the benefits of that because when you say stuff like that, I start to think about, hang on, your brain's absorbed more information, so you've exercised it more, so you've used it more. I know for a fact when you're absorbing more information, it technically makes you more intelligent because you're using your brain more. And I've read all stuff about the more information you put in, the bigger your brain. And I'm starting thinking it's just the benefit is, yeah, it's not a coincidence that we feel better when we do it like that, and we still want to do it like that because I think there's definitely some science there that's probably helping us more than we realize.
I just think don't take the easy way out. If you need to fix it right away, fix it right away, but find out why. What is error code 12? You know what I mean? Let me research that after I solved it and at least find out why it came up in the first place. Maybe we can make sure it never happens again, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, mate. All right, mate. I'm just going to ask you one more question about mentors and stuff like that. Who have you lent on over the years to shape your progression and your growth? Have you had mentors? Have you acquired them over the years? And if so, how did you get them? And any thoughts for the listeners as we come to the end here, my friend?
I've had a lot of great military mentors,
Okay.
leaders, commanders that, and I've had bad ones. And that's the thing to remember is,
Okay.
the bad leaderships you have are still mentors of yours,
Yeah.
but you're learning what you don't want to do. Right. So I took the good and the bad, and you kind of have to put them together. And, you can lean on those that were good and say, hey, teach me more. And those that are bad, you can just go, ooh, don't do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
like leadership. And since I retired, my current business partner, we worked together on that civilian company. And when they got that last purchase and I left, he was like, I'll come with you. Let's start a company, we'll work on this together. So now he's my president of operations, just running everything. So
Yeah. Good, mate. Good. I bet it's really nice having that partner, especially at the start, but I bet it's talk about having fun on the journey. I bet that kind of really helps.
and being able to say, hey, we suffered through the turmoil of this company and its purchases and the layoffs and everything, then saying like, well, what aren't we going to do? What are we, how are we going to focus? What is our plans? And it's always good to have someone to rely on and just say, hey, let me run something by you.
Yeah.
And you need someone to give you the true BS check, right? You don't need a yes person. You need someone that will say, you're full of crap, man. Don't do that.
Yeah, you do. And I think your partner was probably the only one that could do that because I think maybe some of the staff might have the front to tell you, but I don't know. They've got to be brave.
Want to have someone on your team, that will tell you, that's a bridge too far, or this is just crazy talk, or,
Yeah, definitely,
why?
mate. Yeah, what are you doing, Mike?
Yeah. Why? What? I understand what you said, but why?
Cool. All right, mate. Honestly, I like it when entrepreneurs come on. When people have gone from forces to the commercial world to the business world, it's like you've gone boom. You've done like two or three major jumps there. So it's nice to unwrap it, mate. And it's nice to see that your business and things are going well. And every time we chat, we always bounce little ideas around about how to do things. So it's always nice, mate. And I like your approach with the kind of personal branding approach and just trying to win business in a different way. I think there's a lot that job seekers, entrepreneurs, team leads, everyone can learn from it. So thank you, mate. It's been nice.
Oh, thank you. And it's, you have to face life with humor, right?
Yeah.
If we're laughing at life, then we can get through it, right? If we're over stressing and crying about it, we're not getting ahead.
Definitely. All right. Nice to see you, mate. Thanks for that. And it's been good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.